Welcome to the Heartwork Podcast, where we delve into stories, struggles, and triumphs of entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal growth. I'm Dr. Sara.
And I'm Dr. Marisa. We're here to guide practitioners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and those just navigating the complexities of life on a journey of discovery that explores the dance between passion and strategy, heart and hustle.
With candid conversations, insightful interviews, and plenty of laughs, get ready to uncover how leading with heart can transform your business and life. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Heartwork Podcast. I come to this episode with questions, Sara, because as my team continues to grow and scale themselves, right? Like as they continue to grow into leadership, even my associate doc is getting ready to complete all of her training. She's part-time, so we just have taken our time with some of those processes. But once she completes all of that, then we were going to come up with some KPIs together to help build in some bonus opportunity and structure to continue to, build and let her be motivated in the sense of just outside of being an adjuster. And so I know you've done this with your leadership team, not just associates, but also your other high performers on the team. And so what are some ways that you help to encourage them to also partner with you in like creating those bonuses, ideas, those metrics, if you would? So it's not just like me saying, okay, this is what I want you to achieve. This is what I want you to achieve, but it actually becomes like they're bought in for it also, right? I want to do that together with her, with my chief art officer, my chief connections officer. So help me, like, how do you help them call in?
I love that question for the sake of when we start to think about our team and ourselves as like the CEO, like we can't be the people that make all the decisions, micromanage everything. You can't even in your delegation, you need to be able to trust that they're gonna be able to make the decision, but they make it from the space of understanding the vision, who you are, does it come into alignment with your company at the same time, and to give them full ownership. While at the same time, there's still this understanding that things are coming back to where you have clarity about they're meeting what you want them to be met and like that are agreed upon, that there are agreements, there's clarity, all that type of stuff. And so we started, this has been a development thing for my team for a good while. However, one of the things that we've really honed in lately has been something where if I truly am not in the office, like I've been asking myself the question of like, okay, what needs to be in place and what strategies need to be there so that they have full autonomy and also the full understanding and clarity of how that role lends to it, like how they basically operate within that role specifically. But then how did they measure the health of that business based on their specific role, if that makes sense? And so how did they acknowledge whether a system is working or not? And also what those numbers represent when you're building out a KPI. When you're building out, we call them role health indicators. Like it's still a KPI, but it's like those health indicators for their specific role. And then also how it can be collaborative. Because I think in a lot of times, when you think about any huge big company, they typically have this like C-suite. They have these people that are, somebody's over the finance company or the finance area. You have somebody that's over the marketing. They have the people that's over the HR, right? All that type of stuff. And so but then they all come together and they all meet together, right? When they're going over their quarterly goals or objectives or whatever that may be. And so I was like, we got to have some type of that structure a little bit. And not only just like monthly meetings, but also at the same time, like clarity for them to start to develop the muscle to understand the health and the success of a business and a company. And so so I have like 3 questions that I give my team, and we go over this every month, but really strategize every quarter. So basically, what are their main KPIs that they need to be looking for to understand the health of their business? And that's something that they are keeping track of on a monthly occurrence, and we come and collaborate back together. And then the other one, I think in the business world, you probably have heard words of like impact drivers and that type of stuff. And impact drivers basically, in a simple sense, is what are the things that help, what are those impact drivers that basically inform the role's success? So for our chiropractic example for a front desk person. They're sitting at the front desk, they're answering a phone, they're smiling at people, they're embracing every single person to come in that door. People, if they make an appointment on the phone, they actually come into their day one. The journey within the whole paperwork process is successful. So like when you think about impact drivers, I would be looking at, are people actually present at the front desk? Are there strategic processes with that paperwork that is really efficient and journeying along to where there's not any lags along that way? Is the environment and the temperature really high because people are loved? That means that we're getting reviews? It means we're getting referrals, right? It means that there's this constant energy in the office. So those impact drivers are big moments for that one specific role. For me as the CEO, my impact driver that I look at to whether or not we are successful, profit margin, how many like visits do we see on a monthly basis? What are our collections that we are seeing? What's our overhead? I feel like those are my like 4. Obviously there's other numbers, but those are like giving me the health and understanding of like where we and our things and lining up underneath all that. Mm-hmm. But then there are so many small little impact drivers that are affecting revenue. They're affecting your overhead. They're affecting your marketing strategy, all that type of stuff. So I brought that then to my team. I was like, okay, I want you guys to have clarity, not only just with the KPIs that you have, but also at the same time, what are the impact drivers for your specific role that help you indicate whether this is being successful and that actually has momentum, and that you can look back over these past 90 days and say, yes, the things that we implemented, the trainings that we did, the intention on marketing or whatever it may be actually paid off, and that it's lining up with the KPIs that we set for our objectives. That opportunity that I actually gave them was really challenging for them in a way. I actually gave them an opportunity to say, like, okay, we're going to do this next week. I want you guys to come with what you believe your impact drivers are. Some of them went really granular. Other went really like wide, that I didn't care. I just wanted to see what they thought for the role, because at the end of the day, I'm like, I need to have clarity of what they perceive as true, right? At the end, like the opportunity for, I can give them my thoughts, but at the same time, like, what if their thoughts are completely out of alignment with what I think,
So just to clarify, because obviously like you have a team where you are the CEO and then you have leaders, and then under those leaders are workers that also, and team that also helps to support that main overarching like umbrella. Yes?
Yes.
So like for someone like me, who I'm the CEO, and then I just have 4 team members, like they each have their own kind of subsect with it, but like not people that they're gathering information from to report. So like you're asking the leaders to have an understanding of their area and what they're coaching in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to the rest of their reported team that helps them execute the processes. So they have a specific role, health, and then all these individual kind of branches off, or their team members that support them and what they need to get accomplished. Then you are the one that navigates, okay, if this role's health indicator is strong and this role's health indicator is weaker, how do we help each other? Like, how do all of these play a role in the overall business health?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a clinical director. So she oversees all the clinical aspect of the company, along with she ties into the CA side, because she is definitely the last like check before people get checked off, and has understanding on the care advocate, chiropractic assistant part of it. And then I have a operations manager. She is basically the strategist when it comes to all systems in the office. She's the one that like sees how it all works, especially on the CA side, and makes sure that all those systems are operating fully functional. And then I have a culture advisor. She's basically like, I feel like she dances between my like integrator and then also a culture advisor, because she really works strongly with how the temperature of the team, the overall arching like energy. She kind of dances a little bit in HR, all that type of stuff as well. She's also part-time, so that's the only reason why her role is not a little bit more on the HR side of things. So because she leads all of our team meetings, she's doing all of like the the full aspect of like big vision, big culture stuff. And she's the executor of that vision. The other two are more of the strategist when it comes to they see something and they put a strategy and they execute.
Right.
The culture one, she sees the vision and helps me execute the vision, if that makes sense. So,
Totally.
and then they have a team that they then will take all what we talk about, like you said, and they will create their own impact drivers, KPIs for each individual team member, that they have their own things that they are adding value, and they're bringing their chief genius, right? They're bringing their uniqueness to the role, but they're making sure that they feel empowered, they feel like they have strategy, that they have understanding of where the whole company is going, and then we all meet as a crew for the leadership team.
Right. So yeah, we have similar in the sense that obviously there's me as a CEO. Now I have an associate. She's kind of in training, but I will eventually, like, she will obviously take over a lot of the clinical doctor side of like the execution of adjustments and happiness in the rooms, etc. But then I have our heart officer who really is in control of like flow and systems and team and like training and all of that. And then she also does a lot of like our accounts, our back end like bookkeeping. And then I have our kind of like internal marketer who really focuses on like newsletters and events for the office and monthly office themes and practice member appreciation weeks and like retention and how do we make sure everyone feels inclusive and how do we make sure that our tone of speech and like everything continues to promote the culture that we are cultivating as a team, but that also reflects outwardly into the community. I keep things like fun and engaging. And then I have another team member who's our newest team member, and she's kind of stepping in and kind of figuring out where that place is.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of put her in as an assistant help to team and systems. But she's really good at organization. So I can actually eventually see her also taking over some of the CHO, like helping her with those tasks too. And then my student doc is kind of flowing with Dr. C now and my associate in like external outreach of networking, lunch and learns, workshops, events, like things that are more of the clinical side, but still play a role in marketing from a clinical side versus like the internal like referral drivers and how do we work and have the whole family comfortable and able to see us all and like those little metrics. So they're like almost in charge of coming up with their KPIs and metrics while also then executing them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I'm still in the role right now of like helping to figure out what that is, where you are in the role of helping them figure out what that is, but then they're also going to go take that and continue to develop it with other human beings.
Right.
So there's also this dance I feel like for us of, am I trying to create a large company effort with a small company like execution, like capacity? Because it's really easy to talk about all these things, but then realize like we are all just individual people. So figuring out kind of the dance between like where are we actually now and how much work needs to happen for our small business to run and run effectively while not, getting our horse in front of the cart in front of the horse. Is that?
Yeah.
Not getting our cart because the horse is always in front of the cart. It is supposed to be at least. So without getting the cart in front of the horse of like, what's actually necessary versus like what's so far out there that we don't have to worry our little brains on right now. Like,
yeah, I definitely think that there are seasons where you're developing people, right? Like I've been doing this now, we're celebrating 10 years. And so where we are, I have 2 docs, I have a team of 6 technically. And the rhythm of where we are and how I'm inviting them to ask some of these questions didn't just also happen overnight, right? And it wasn't something that we just naturally went to. We were very similar like you, where it's like, okay, I kind of have this like one A+ player that's like, I could see potential here and I could see her taking a lot of ownership, like what you have done at the same time. But I think the beautiful opportunity is when people get to ask some of those questions of like, okay, well, who do I have on my team that potentially could go into development and really go into leadership? And the opportunity I think that we have as leaders, especially if you ever want to allow yourself to have, whether that be buy back some time or really help to scale you in your business, there has to be people around you that can help you do that. And
Yeah.
also and that are going to be effective strategists that can do things that you're just maybe not as great at. Like I know my strength and my weakness. I 100% am a systems girl all day long because I can see, like I can literally see from a 60,000 foot view where something is not working well, but I don't want to be the one to have to execute it. Like I can see it, but there are people in my orbit that are going to be phenomenal executors, and they're the ones that are going to go take it and run with it, And so, but I have to be able to have people that will take that ownership and say, okay, but I know that this is valuable now, and I'm actually going to do this,
Mhm.
And so it did take time to develop this, and it took time to develop the people. Kendall, who I was talking about, is my chief culture officer. She's been with me now for 7 years. And so even just her journey, she's gone from office manager. She actually was more of a project manager for a while, office manager. She then obviously has gone on the dance of being pregnant and gone on through maternity, that type of journey, and has had a family. So that's why she's more part-time. So her role has kind of gone to that. And so it's just beautiful and wild to see how people step up into that. My operations manager, she's been with me for 4, and she, again, when somebody's just really brilliant with systems, it's you got to capitalize on that. But also, I think the thing that then started to come from me, so if you ever have somebody that's really beautiful in leadership, that's how do you get them to now start asking the questions that you would ask? They can look at numbers all day long, or they can look at a system or a strategy all day long, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's anything different than making sure the task is getting done.
Right.
They may not have the capacity to see vision, but maybe they do. And you need to, at least I think there's an opportunity to ask them, how can you land on this? And so that's where I started to have these conversations with my leaders, and to where it was okay, so let's come up with your own individual KPIs that you're measuring. And what do you find that are going to be beneficial for you to have understanding of what that KPI means? Because also at the same time, let's say somebody's KPI is a day 1 to day 2 show up rate. So you want to have a show up rate for 85% or higher, let's say. But what if that doesn't necessarily mean anything to them because it doesn't necessarily align with their role? So then at the end of the day, I can give numbers to my whole team, and that's where they actually came back to me. They're like, I feel like these numbers, if they're here, but how do I influence them, or how do I help them? And so that was kind of where we started to have more of a conversation. When they got honest with me, they're like, okay, these are helpful. These are really good. We want these, but obviously at the same time, how do I help lead them? And how do I make sure the people that I'm leading have understanding that their role influences the end all role health indicator, the KPI, right? And so when we broke it down, I'll just kind of give you guys some examples for our specific positions. So Hannah, she's a systems and efficiency girl. So whether that's an office manager or whether that's operations person, kind of like your heart officer, Ashley, she's a person of all things right now, just because she's one person as you're developing her right now. So her KPIs are, when looking at them, she is really this is our season of life. We're really intrigued about our day 1 process to a day 2 show up rate. So that's a certain percentage that we're calculating and looking at. Then we also want to know what's the percentage once they get to that day 2, what is the sign-on rate? So we're keeping track of that as well, because that also then gives us a full picture of okay, the minute that they step in our doors, do they make it to sign on? Are they a happy customer at that point? And then if there's something along the way, there's a lot of systems along that way that she needs to be keeping track of for the success of the sign-on rate. And then also a scheduling efficiency sign-on rate. So one of the things we've been really curious about is how many leads do we get, but then do they actually convert to a new patient? Do they actually convert to a salesperson person to come into the office? So that's some of her main 3. And then she's been really intrigued about our patient journey, drop off, so attrition rate as well. So she basically is looking at 4 KPIs over a course of a quarter right now. And that's everything from, again, all leads all the way to full retention. And that's just something that she's keeping eyes on, but more of the system journey for those KPIs. And then Dr. Bridget, she is similar for the day 1 to day 2 sign-on conversion, because that's important, because she's checking off a lot of these team members. She wants to have understanding of that, and also for her doctors. Her big part is she also wants to have clarity on retention rates across our what we call them restorative versus wellness plans, and then our progress report of findings, completion, and quality. So it's basically like full conversion. Do these people make it from an active care journey to a wellness care? And do they stay on wellness care for however long? And because we have all of our doctors do progress report of finding processes. So she technically has 5. So she's looking at those 3 from the beginning part of it. And then she's looking at what is our connections or adjustment volume per week and also per each doctor. So she's measuring, because we have certain KPIs for each associate doctor that comes on. So she's helping monitor and measure what is the KPI volume for those doctors to make sure that they're staying in alignment with what our goals and our objectives are. And then at the same time, care plan, quality, and effectiveness. That's like the report of findings, like sign-on rates. She's wanting to make sure that if a doctor is doing a report of findings, if they are all of a sudden going really low on their report of findings, there needs to be a conversation around that, right? So she's measuring that and making sure that's in time with that. That's it currently this quarter for her. And then Kendall, hers are a little bit less of a number, but these are her KPIs basically, because it's basically team engagement and trainings and meetings. So it's looking at not only the effectiveness of the meeting, but how were people engaged? Are they showing up with their commitments? Are they showing up with their KPIs? Are they coming prepared, ready? Like, are her team ready to actually engage with that? She's looking at frequency of culture, like temperature checks, because she's on she does a lot of our check-ins with the team, or she has leaders that are checking in with the team that she's also looking at. So what's the feedback from that? So team training, completion, feedback, those types of things. Internal communication across roles is a big one for her. Does everybody feel like they have full access to her, to me? Is there any communication like pipelines that are just not being filled that we need to look at? And then also team alignment with like patient journey. Does everybody have a full understanding of what the patient journey is for that individual? So that's at least where we had navigated for her for what she's really focusing on this next quarter at the same time. So those are just KPIs. And then the beautiful part about really asking like the impact drivers is like, okay, now in those KPIs, what are the things that you are going to be watching for if something falls off? What could directly affect whether or not somebody signs on to care? When you're looking at like objections, those types of things, where in the system chain could that have gone bad? So now they're starting to really understand like, okay, this directly affects the KPI.
Right.
This specific individual or system or environment, culture can completely affect this role. And so that's where when you look at impact drivers, that's how you can help them start to curate, not just, okay, these numbers matter, but now how do we actually see that the things that we do impact them at the end of the day?
Right. Like identifying, okay, yes, we have these numbers or these stats that we're tracking, but what do they then mean?
Exactly.
What affected them most commonly? How do we then create either a new system or a new training around that to like help to influence that KPI to be different? Or where do we notice that the leak is coming from? Where do we stop the plug, et cetera? Or like what things do we need to do? And then I love that too, because you get to go further back. Right. You're not just looking at that one conversation of the conversion from, a new patient to a sailed patient, someone who's signed on. You're looking at, okay, well, were there possible leaks along the process to them becoming that new patient or going through that day 1 that actually influenced the decision of day 2? Or even like you said, in, your attrition rate and wellness, like they've been with you for so long. Where are we popping off? How is that being affected? Are there things that can be done in steps along the way that would help elongate that timeline and change that? So,
Right. Yeah. I had a coach then ask me this spring, actually, she had posed me a question, which was it's really kind of where we then landed with the third part of this, where it's like, how did they now, like what you're just seeing, how did they have the understanding to ask some of those questions that you're just asking?
right.
Because sometimes like you can have all the KPIs, you can have understanding of what affects it, but then do they have the full clarity and understanding to be able to step back, take a 30,000 foot view like we do as CEOs, right? or
Right.
60,000 foot view, where we do the questions where it's like, okay, this past 90 days, we had, for example, a team transition. We were onboarding new team, and so our capacity to see a bunch of new ones was lower because I didn't have as many new patients or have as many people to onboard those new patients. So our new patient numbers are lower, and then in the turn, that obviously directly can affect revenue. It can affect all this other journey that this patient's going through. But do they have the capacity to see that? I can take a step back and say, yes, these last 90 days, this was the strategy, this is what we were doing, but did they have the understanding to do it? So that then posed the question for me as their leader, how can I help them, ask them questions so that they can start to get curious for their own journey at the same time? Because if I want to eventually, whether I ever adjust again or I foresee myself adjusting for a long time, but if ever I want to really scale this or get myself a place where I'm not there, they need to be able to ask questions like I ask questions, right? They don't have to be me at all. I don't want them to be me. I want them to be their unique selves in this, but they need to be able to have understanding of where this is happening, what's happening for them so that they can make healthy decisions for the business, and it can continue to sustain itself. I know I'm the heartbeat of this place. Like, at the same time, there's a beautiful rhythm because it's my baby. Well, it doesn't mean that they can't take still full ownership of it at the same time and carry that heartbeat out. And so these are just examples of like questions that I then invited them to think about for Hannah, specifically for operations. Where did system breakdowns occur? If something was happening, where did it start to break down? So she's posing a question, not just like, did the system break down, but where did it break down? Was there a gap between scheduling and showing up? Like, where was this? Was it a person problem? Were new systems implemented effectively? Was there proper training? Did we do the job that we needed to do for the actual like implementation? Those are just examples of like looking backwards. For hers, looking forward, are current systems scalable for growth? Do we have a gap? Do we need to add in new technology? Do we need to add in new people? Do we need to add in other things so that we can actually move forward faster?
Right.
Where is friction building within certain systems? What training does the team need? So it's like, those are like the forward thinking, but then also how do we look back so that she can start to have an understanding of like, okay, what is working, what's not working, right?
Right.
Kendall's is like, again, team-wise, when did the team feel most aligned? What certain internal, external things were we doing that they felt like so on like fire with? What friction potentially could have been avoided? I think one of the things that I've noticed with team, if you have the same thing happen over and over again, you're having the same cycles pop up, it's opportunity for you to close that loop a lot faster. So that question is like, what friction could have been avoided is like, where could we have stopped this leak a lot faster? So that's like helping her develop skills to see, okay, this temperature or energy that the team is giving off, this is not great. I need to stop this now, have a conversation, blah, 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 whatever it may be. What feedback surface during changes? Like if you are implementing a change, does your team immediately have friction or they don't want to do it type of a thing? Maybe they get disgruntled because you have something that you're inviting them into, but they just are afraid because they're uncomfortable, right? And then looking ahead, like what mindset shift does the team need? Where might energy dip along the way? Like, I think that's one of the crazy things. 90 days now, you may implement something, but then at the same time, everybody may be excited for the first couple of weeks, but then there's always going to be a dip. There's always going to be levels, but how can you continue to keep that moving forward? That's part of her role, right?
Mhm.
Are we celebrating wins enough, not only on patient care, also team care, that type of stuff. And so that's for Kendall. Dr. Bridget is looking back. Did sign-on rates improve? Was there, with progress reported findings of people were not signing under care, are there rhythms to it? And were there things that we had implemented? Like for us specifically, we added on a new doctor. So that's a huge temperature check to be able to see, do our people are they staying under care as we add on new people? Because does that mean that our training was done well? Did we honor their journey really, really great to make sure that they knew that we trusted this individual, but we also trusted their care to her at the same time? And also were trainings that we put in place that she specifically did those change any outcome or not? And then looking ahead, where do we need clinical consistency changes? What training do we need? What implementation of whether it be technology, those types of things are going to carry this through? Do care plans match current patient needs? Are we preparing patients adequately? It's like all those types of questions can be able to really help shift her clarity for what's moving us forward at the same time.
Right. Yeah. You don't realize, like, it's amazing to talk about it, right? Because I'm sure some people listen to this and they're like, oh my God, and their head is like spinning. But what's not hilarious, but just full circle to me is like, this is the shit that we have to think about literally every second of every day.
Literally. Yes.
And I think it's so funny when people go into like private practice and they're doing their own thing or they're owning their own business. And it's like, you don't realize the amount of brain power, decision fatigue. Like, yeah, you're owner, like they think like, oh, you hired team now, or oh, you have an associate. Like life must be so easy. Like you have all these people working with you. It's like, yeah, you have other people to help you execute on this stuff, but like you're still thinking about everything here from A to Z. Your brain is monitoring all those KPIs, thinking about all those different things. And it's like nearly impossible to have enough hours in the day to constantly go through every one of those every single time. So like when you're doing this solo, it's almost like you do have to time block to look at different metrics, like a time block for patient retention, a time block for wellness, a time block for day 1 to day 2 conversions to care conversions, and another time block to look at like marketing funnels and buckets and things. But it's such a blessing and a gift when you have a team and the team can still help you execute on these things. Like you said, you want them to start asking questions so that they can start to develop the same thinking processes. Because I mean, not for nothing, but for us as doctors in this service-based industry, it's not like we were ever taught how to look at a KPI metric in a business. Like we were taught to look at clinical KPIs on like progress of improvement in a patient and like changing up those things to help make their results have a higher consistency and have a, higher rate. But like all this other stuff is stuff that we've just had to evolve and grow with and learn along the way. And you and I are very driven individuals that like care about this stuff because we want our businesses to be healthy, to be sustainable. But there's a lot of chiropractic practices. There's a lot of service-based businesses out there in industries where you're running a shop and you're not paying attention to those things, but you're wondering why your numbers look differently on the end, or why you have so much employee turnover, or why, reviews are starting to go down. And you're like, I don't understand. I brought in this new coffee for my coffee machine. Like, what's going on? And it's like, well, was it new? Is it different? How long has your old coffee machine been there? Have people always told you how great they love that coffee? Just because this one comes from a different source or a thing, does that mean that you really needed to change that thing to make it better when you had a good thing going just like it was? Focus your energy somewhere else. Like those are all the things you have to think about. Like, yeah, power to all of our fellow, business owners out there that don't learn how to do this stuff and are literally learning it along the way.
Right.
Right. And how cool is it that we get to, I love this. So thank you for all of our listeners for listening. Thank you for the people that are following this, because we're only able to share this with you as long as you guys are willing to listen and to put in the work and to be present and to actually care about this stuff, because you want your business to run. It's just nobody's giving you tools and guidelines to help you figure out what that is along the way. And shout out to our mentors who have given and poured that into us, which now give us a capacity to learn it along the way for ourselves, that give us our own unique perspective to be able to continue to share that forward for that next generation of business owners, or the current generation of business owners that are looking for assistance and help going with this, because it's not easy. There's a lot to think about. And even as you scale yourself up and out of the business, your mind is never going to stop thinking about all those different aspects and all those different funnels. It's just you have more people to also be able to bounce the ideas and the questions off with you to go there. It's like the thing that I've loved the most about hiring my first associate is I actually have someone to talk about clinical cases with and be like, am I seeing this right? Am I seeing it wrong? Like, what can we do more? What do we need to do less? Like, it's so beautiful to bounce that off with someone who's literally in your environment, not just a colleague that you're sharing, about the case and asking for continued expertise and guidance and like another brain, but like literally they're in your practice serving your people. Like that is so cool. Whether you be in, a hair salon and stylist and like learning new tools and tricks for highlights and biolage and like all the things, whatever, new cutting techniques. Like it is so amazing when you get to have a team to do this. And I know we've talked about this a million times, and good, you have to design the life that you want. But man, for all those that are just in their one person boutique shop and practice, like having someone else in there with you is just so rewarding and phenomenal.
Mhm.
But it's a lot of work too,
It is
because
hard.
trying to teach someone else the things that you're still learning yourself. Like we're also still not perfect at figuring out what we need to fully track at all the different times and all the different spots of the day. It's why it's an evolution. And that's why I think one of the questions you posed about, like, let's just look at the past 90 days, right? Like
Mhm.
quarterly check ins for that can be really impactful because it's a very specific short stint of time. It's enough time to kind of look at trends and patterns while being also enough time to then make a quick change, right? So that it doesn't affect the whole year, but that you can change something in a quarter and put something into action that can either go into action within those first 90 days, or you get the systems and the training and the things to implement it for that following quarter. So you're taking that 6 months, but still have the following 6 months to really see the fruit of what that opportunity and labor is.
For sure. I think that was one of the biggest things when I started to do some of this stuff is like all of a sudden we were like filling holes month, 2 month, 3 months later. It's like, oh crap. Like, why didn't we catch this ahead of time? Right.
Yeah.
Like, how did we not like catch this, but we weren't actually being intentional with it? So, how can you catch it if you're not being intentional with it? And so that was just part of the journey on like all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, I'm thinking about all these things, but how do I get other people to think about it too? And also be able to then like be quick to move and like make decisions without always having to come back to me to be able to get approval to make those decisions. I think that's just like you're saying, like as like our brains have so much, like I'm thinking about so much stuff. And now like it's wild too, is you like start to have leaders do it. Like I'm thinking more about my leaders, not necessarily like all the inner workings of stuff, but it's like I want to make sure that they have everything equipped to be able to do the things so that all the others like the little penial things that we need to be able to have like working for us, right? That they are working the way that they need to be working. Um, so yeah, it just is, it's such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful gift. And also it's something that is an evolution at the same time because it didn't just happen for me even this way either. You know, like it's been people, like you said, I love that the shout out to all the mentors, goodness gracious, they have asked me questions so that I can even ask myself those questions and then in turn ask my team the same question. You know, like that's the evolution of it is like if we don't gatekeep our own success and what we've learned, that's going to our team all day long, right? It's like I'm not holding anything back from my team when it comes to what I'm learning at the same time because I want that development for them so that they can do the things that they're designed to do and uniquely made to be able to create. So I'm going to challenge everybody on this. So if those of you guys listening, as we close this out, I would encourage if you have somebody on your team that maybe you could do this with or dance with, there's two ways that you could do it. I think the question about the impact drivers, I actually ran this through a bunch of clients last a couple weeks ago. And they had probably more of a challenge with impact drivers than they did with developing KPIs. The impact drivers are like, well, what are the impact drivers that are creating the momentum and the movement? You have to have clarity about what those are first before you can even create a KPI. So if that is something that you don't know or you don't feel like you have full clarity on, I would invite you just to go get curious about like, okay, in each position, each role, in the areas of your business, what is the driving factor, those impact drivers that are going to make that role successful or make that role beautifully rhythmic. It has the most flow. Like, you know, everything is working really, really great because those impact drivers are set and they're there. If you have clarity about that, then you can also then start to create KPIs. So if you have full clarity on that journey, then great. Let's go ahead and start to invite your team to start creating some KPIs so they can have understanding about how those impact drivers affect those KPIs and then get curious about how you can then start to ask them questions that have clarity for it at the same time.
Can you leave our audience, because I feel like we talked about this in the beginning, but can you leave them with one specific example of an impact driver to a KPI in your business?
So let's do sign-on rate. So this person has already come through all of our day one, day two. For us specifically, we have a day two process. They have a sign-on rate percentage that we want to be hitting within our office specifically. That is a KPI, that percentage, whatever KPI percentage. If you want to see 85% of a sign-on rate, that's great. An example of an impact driver is that they had such a phenomenal tour. They had such a phenomenal day one education, that they had such a phenomenal orientation, that then all of a sudden those came back and then they signed on throughout that process. That's an example of a patient journey all the way from they went all the way through that tour. That's an example. A tour is an impact driver. The day one education is an impact driver. Them coming up to the front desk, them being treated, taking a payment, the process of that paperwork, actually processing through, those are impact drivers to successfully impact a 85% sign-on rate. If that helps make that more clear. Those are more impact drivers for the sign-on rate.
It's the systems that come in
Yes.
to create what that number or metric is looking at.
Yeah. System and culture.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, system and culture. And so like some of them you can't always measure. Like when it comes to culture, sometimes it's going to be your team energy. Like at the front desk, is your team's back toward somebody, or are they fully like forward facing because they're actually anticipating somebody walking through your door?
Right.
That's a very different team culture comparable to one versus the other.
Yeah.
And that would 100% affect whether somebody is signing on to care.
Totally.
So we would invite you to just get curious about what this looks like for you and your team, whether you just have one team member, whether you have a leadership team. There's always opportunity to be able to empower them more and to call out potential, and also get strategic and clear for yourself as you are also developing your team. So this stuff geeks me out. I love it so much because it also challenges me. I love the leadership aspect of things. So I hope it geeks you guys out, and thanks for listening today, and we'll see you guys next time. So thank you for joining us on another episode of the Heartwork Podcast. We hope today's conversation has inspired you to lead with heart in your business and life.
If you enjoyed this, subscribe so you never miss a release, rate our show, leave us a review, get on our VIP email list, and join our exclusive Facebook group, The Heartwork Life, to plug into our community and learn from us and other heart-led entrepreneurs on a weekly basis.
We look forward to chatting with you next time.
Bye!